Carlos Sainz and Charles Leclerc were 7th and 10th fastest respectively in the final free practice session for the Japanese Grand Prix. Both drivers went out on track immediately, as did many others to make up for the time lost in yesterday's second session, which was of little value because of the rain. Charles and Carlos started off on the medium compound tires, setting times of 1:30.559 and 1:30.984 respectively. In the middle of the session, they took on more fuel to run in race trim, while towards the end, they fitted soft tires for a qualifying simulation, setting their best times of 1:30.171 for Carlos and 1:30.383 for Charles. The Spaniard did 27 laps, the Monegasque 25. In the first run of the final free practice session for the 2024 Formula 1 Japanese Grand Prix at the 5.807 km Suzuka International Racing Course, the two Ferrari SF-24 cars focused on exploring the Pirelli C2 tires. These medium compounds had not been used during yesterday's practice sessions. Both Ferrari drivers continued their important work on improving handling. The main goal was to maximize the drivability of the car on all parts of the track. Traffic was a nuisance for everyone, but nonetheless, Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz completed their work without any issues, as the Ferrari's aerodynamic platform still looks good. The slight adjustments made to the ride height aim to maximize efficiency under load in all driving phases. The stance continues to be noticeable, although the Italian cars seemed a bit more neutral. The intention is to maintain an advantage in entry phase while at the same time having a rear end that could follow the solidity of the front end in direction changes. Examining the various laps done to simulate the push lap on medium tires, one of these was in Engine 1, maximum internal combustion power, a maneuver useful for testing impact of the power unit over the lap. Riccardo Adami and Xavi Marcos, the two race engineers for the Prancing Horses drivers, praised both Carlos Sainz and Charles Leclerc for their performance at the Hairpin, turn 11, where mid-corner speed is very important for good traction on exit. The same goes for other sections of the track, where the handling chosen after various studies with telemetry has confirmed the measures. For the second run, Ferrari moved on to simulate high fuel load. The team did not vary the high fuel test, sending out the two red cars with used medium tires. This is because they considered the yellow-banded Pirellis to be extremely important for the race, compounds that will probably be used in the first stint on Sunday. Apart from a small snap from Charles Leclerc at turn 4 due to an imprecise trajectory with a lot of fuel on board, the red car behaves very well. We can even say better than Red Bull in terms of drivability, also considering that Max Verstappen complained a lot about understeer. The lap times undoubtedly pleased the Ferrari pit wall, taking into account that in the first part of the stint, Charles Leclerc was 6.7 faster than Max Verstappen, then aligning in the second part with the Dutchman's times when degradation began to make its presence felt. The same goes for Carlos Sainz, who, although a bit slower during the first laps of his run, then made up time in the second part. The reason is simple. The Spaniard performed more tire management at the beginning to then have more tire in the second part of the stint with his SF-24. Interestingly, throughout this process, the engine mappings remained the same for the entire duration of the tests with a lot of fuel, without switching to the mode related to maximum internal power for at least one lap, as often happens. Lastly, we note the presence of slight porpoising on the main Suzuka straight, which, however, did not compromise performance for the Maranello team. In the final part of the free practice session for the Japanese Grand Prix, the red cars went back out with brand new soft tires to test the push lap with a higher level of grip. Charles Leclerc was undoubtedly not lucky in his attempt, as he encountered traffic from two cars at the Snake. Although they were off the racing line, they obviously disturbed him. We're talking about a potential loss of a couple of tenths or more. However, the Italian team's simulation on the fast lap was not optimal. Indeed, as mentioned, the traffic had a negative impact on the times, including Carlos Sainz's. However, the fuel loads and mappings used remain to be understood. Also considering that on the radio, the two Ferrari drivers did not utter a word, as if everything was perfectly under control. Therefore, we defer any judgment on the single lap performance to the qualifying session that will start in less than 1 hour at the Suzuka circuit. Lastly, a consideration on the final free practice session with a broader view. The Maranello team seems to have given strong priority to the race. For this reason, it should have chosen a setup for the SF-24 cars that favors the race with a high fuel load on board. The target, after all, remains the same: to optimize performance and try to stay as close as possible to Red Bull. On the other hand, tire degradation is very high here at Suzuka and must be taken into serious consideration.